Guess who's back? Back again. You're not cursed, you just are in survival mode. Like, I woke up like this, but not flawless. I woke up like this into pure insanity, and I'm not alone. And I always say I like to use my usefulness like my white privilege to help other people. And that's the truth. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Me IRL. I'm your host, Lauren Friedman, also known as Not Another Healing Asshole, the trauma translator, the suicide whisperer, and more. And this is a podcast where we learn how to our lives in real life, because good Lord knows we need it. Before we dive into the story today, which is about what survival mode looks like in real life, you're not cursed, you just are in survival mode. I woke up like this, but not flawless. I woke up like this into pure insanity, and I'm not alone. Generational epigenetic trauma, which is trauma that lives in our genes and becomes pronounced through environmental factors over time, is something that we all have to deal with globalization, World War I, World War II, whatever is going on in the past 40 plus years or 70 plus years, globally, it impacts our genes, it impacts our lives day to day. And I used to think I was cursed, but I actually was in undiagnosed survival mode. And both my parents were therapists. I was in therapy since I was 5 after my dad's first suicide attempt, which he eventually did take his life. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. June is CPTSD Awareness Month. And I like to call it CTPSR for Complex Post-Traumatic Stress Response, because it's not a disorder. There's actually no disorders. There's only somatic responses, meaning comes from our body and their responses to triggers, which are just stimuli. And we can choose how we respond to them if we have awareness and connection to ourselves. And the only way we can do that is through regulating our nervous system in real life. So that's what we're going to talk about on this pod, because it's really important for society and for the world. And this is how you change your life in real life. You might be asking yourself, how the did I get here and how the do I get out? That's something I ask myself every single day, pretty much since I was born. Some of the things that are keeping me sane right now, it's a very, very thin line, I should say, of sanity, help my nervous system and just keep me from losing my mind each day. So first is Komuso. Komuso is a breathing tool that helps you regulate your nervous system in real time. It's literally functional fashion. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. And before we dive in, I'd like to do a little breathwork exercise together. So I like to do a 4-4-8 breath. And what you do is you inhale for 4, you hold for 4, and then you exhale slowly for 8. And that is where the magic happens. And that is where your heart rate gets reduced, your blood pressure gets reduced, your sanity comes back, your will to live, and your body literally can get regulated from a state of dysregulation to a state of regulation in real time. So let's do it together. It's literally magic. You could feel the difference. You can literally feel the shift. That's why it's called the Komuso shift. The next thing is Equip protein bars with 20 grams of grass-fed protein, as well as Built protein bars with 17 to 20 grams of protein as well. That has whey protein in it. Both of those things help you stay regulated. They keep you fuller. They help build amino acids, which keeps your brain from having brain fog. It helps you think clearer, and it just helps you stay saner. The next thing that I'm absolutely obsessed with is morning routine. Morning routine is an electrolyte that is only 3 ingredients. It's literally apple cider vinegar, organic lemon, and sea salt. It's so delicious, and it's literally my favorite way to hydrate. I'm a wateraholic. I carry around a 64-ounce water bottle just for fun. I've been drinking water my whole life, and I stopped drinking a few years ago, which is why I love Recess as well for the sobriety spectrum drinks. But all of these things keep us regulated, they keep us hydrated, they keep us sane, they keep us full, and they just keep us from losing our minds. So that's what I'm doing. You can find all the links to buy those products in the links above. So before I dive into everything, I used to think I was cursed. I was like, I'm cursed. There's nothing I could do about it. My life is on a full tilt-a-whirl my whole life. I woke up like this, but not flawless. I woke up like this into pure insanity. And I'm not alone. Generational epigenetic trauma, which is trauma that lives in our genes and becomes pronounced through environmental factors over time is something that we all have to deal with globalization, World War I, World War II, whatever is going on in the past 40 plus years or 70 plus years, globally, it impacts our genes, it impacts our lives day to day. And I used to think I was cursed, but I actually was in undiagnosed survival mode. And both my parents were therapists. I was in therapy since I was 5 after my dad's first suicide attempt, which he eventually did take his life. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. June is CPTSD Awareness Month. And I like to call it CTPSR for Complex Post-Traumatic Stress Response, because it's not a disorder. There's actually no disorders. There's only somatic responses, meaning comes from our body and their responses to triggers, which are just stimuli. And we can choose how we respond to them if we have awareness and connection to ourselves. And the only way we can do that is through regulating our nervous system in real life. So that's what we're going to talk about on this pod, because it's really important for society and for the world. And this is how you change your life in real life. I've lost my entire family. My dad himself. My mom dropped dead a few years ago. I have a legal situation with my only sibling who I was trying to take care of, but because of epigenetic trauma, we got put in a position that was not good for anybody. Then I have this insane story. I've had a prolific and volatile career in advertising and technology for the past 20 years. I've lost my job 6 times with my whole team. And I've also lost and gained over 100 pounds multiple times from trauma living in my body. I had scaled up to 14 hours a week of CrossFit. And every time I had lost weight, my body kept gaining it back, and I couldn't understand why. I was like, what's going on? I eventually started starving myself. I started taking 60 laxatives a night, and it didn't make sense why I was almost 300 pounds multiple times. Like, I grew up with hippie activist parents. We were eating clean literally since I was born. So my lifestyle never really matched what was happening in my body, and it didn't make sense. And nobody really understood it either. The doctors thought I had a tumor in my adrenal gland at one point, and I was being evaluated for those things. And it wasn't until a doctor at my CrossFit gym, whose dad also committed suicide, was able to figure out almost 4 decades of disparate somatic responses to trauma, meaning different types of symptoms that don't look like each other. That's what disparate means. Different things, right? So they couldn't put together that I, broke my arm 7 times as a kid, or I'd been having disordered eating at under 2 years old. But because I was so high functioning, and because I was so articulate at a young age, and I was saving myself forever, nobody ever knew that I was in lifelong undiagnosed survival mode, which is why I call it survival mode as a superpower, because it is. But it also could kill you if you don't know how to regulate your nervous system. And nobody teaches us how to do that, because nobody was trauma informed until recently in the past few years. So that's part of my mission, is to help people their lives in real life, because we all need to do that. Thank you so much for watching the Me IRL pod. If you want to support the mission, the quickest way to do that is to hit the subscribe button. Also, what really helps algorithmically is to like, share, comment. If you have any thoughts, drop it in the comments below. I'm happy to respond to all of them. I will be responding personally. Also, if any of the, a few of my favorite things, my affiliate partnerships, are interesting to you, you could find them all in the link above, including but not limited to Equip Protein, Built Bars, Sleet's not on there yet because they don't have an affiliate program, but Recess, Routine, and Komuso Design, all things to help you stay sane, hydrated, and aligned in your power. Back to the regularly scheduled programming. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. May was a tough month for me. It's Mother's Day, which has been a problem for me my entire existence. Like, when both my parents were alive, because I was put in these roles where I was the mediator. I played every role in the family. I was enmeshed into every role in a really dysfunctional way. And I didn't know it wasn't normal, right? Like, I just thought this was my life. Like, my parents had much worse lives than I did, like, honestly. So by comparison, I thought I was lucky, and I was. But we also can be lucky, right? That's the paradox of the human existence, right? Is that you can have two truths that don't align with each other at the same time, right? You could feel lucky, but also feel cursed. And I never understood why my life was just in this chaotic tilt-a-whirl. I didn't even know how to stop. It wasn't until I literally was in undiagnosed PTSD, PTSR, and adrenal fatigue, where I was having flashbacks and wetting the bed while I was interviewing at the biggest companies in the world, that I was like, things are not going well for me. And, things are going well.com has been a domain that I've owned for many years. But the thing is that when we feel out of control and we feel like we don't have agency over our lives, our bodies feel that too. And when we don't have safety in our bodies and safeties in our minds and our lives, we get sick. So I actually have been I'm a biohacker. I've been able to reverse chronic illness that I've had since I was a child. I've been able to finally address the underlying issues of, it wasn't really alcohol that was my problem. It was actually an attachment wound. And that's the motivating force, the driving force of almost every single unconscious decision that we make as a society. We see it on a global level right now happening in the United States. We elected a president, and we're not going to go into that much on this episode, but we elected a president that is literally, he's unwell. And I'm not talking about his age. I'm talking about his attachment wounds. His attachment wounds are on display for all the world to see. And the thing is that when you're in lifelong undiagnosed survival mode or you're dysregulated, your body doesn't have clarity. You don't have the ability to control your destiny. You have no choices. Everything is a struggle. But when you have the ability to have calmness in your mind and body and get to a place of regulation, the world is your oyster. And it doesn't mean everything is solved. Like, my life is far from being resolved right now. Like, I've been unemployed for the last 3 years today. I lost my job on June 1st for the 6th time with my whole team on June 1st of 2023. And we'll go into that story another time, but this has been something that has affected my life immensely. So between Mother's Day, my ex-best friend of 40 years, her birthday, my dad's suicide anniversary, which was the 16th of May, May 28th, which was the day that the last time I saw him, which was at my college graduation from the University of Delaware on May 28th, 2005, which I used to think was my big story. That was something that when it happened in the middle of it, I literally remember thinking, like, he was said, I haven't been part of this family for 4 years, and he left, and I never saw him again alive. And that's also part of why this is called me IRL, because my last words with my parents, both of them separately, unknowingly that they were going to be my last words in person. We had some communication via, text message minimally with my mom. With my dad, I had one more communication via phone with him, but like, it wasn't a good conversation. It was me telling him to control his girlfriend, who we met in a psych facility, who I knew didn't go well. I'm really good at reading people. That's one of the survival modes as a superpower, right? So I was parenting my parents my whole life. And that's actually ultimately what impacted this thing that happened in my college graduation. And it just never got better from there. It only got worse for him. But the thing is that actually impacted me way more than I ever could have imagined. I used to think that my dad leaving our family, and my dad's side was the least of my problems, but it's actually the most of my problems, because that May 23rd also, May 23rd was the day I was supposed to be born. I was born actually on June 6th. And my mom was she loved that day, even though she was so hard on me, but she loved that day. It was a precious day for her first child, and was supposed to be born that day. And that day in 2003, I got arrested in a liquor store in the state of Delaware. It was a misdemeanor to physically be in a liquor store. I hadn't even bought anything yet. And I didn't even want to tell her about it, honestly. And I went through all these different things we'll talk about on a different episode, but that was also the last time that I asked for help, because I knew every time I asked for help, it ended up me, honestly. And every person I've ever asked for help has never been able to help me in the way that I need. And it's really isolating. It's really demoralizing, and it can literally make you take your life. And I never have, right? When you lose a parent you learn a lot of things. And my dad tried many times since I was 5 years old. And that was why I was in therapy since I was 5, because he had tried to, and I'd been having flashbacks my whole life, and I didn't know it because no one ever defined what a flashback was. Nobody even thought that this was a traumatic experience, because they only knew trauma as it pertains to the battlefield. So literally, like, 1980 was the first time that they started to study trauma on the battlefield. So when we think about our country is only 250 years old, and capitalism is only 400 years old, we have a long way to go, baby, And this is why I'm sharing this story, because it's not just me. Everybody suffers from these same things that are ruining our lives unconsciously. So in May 28th of 2005, I graduated the University of Delaware, and everyone's like, oh, with a mouth like that, you're going to have no problem getting a job. Except every job that summer, I accidentally, unconsciously, messed up the interviews. And I ended up in tech, which ended up driving the world. So it ended up being good for my career at the time, right? When you think about nervous system literacy, the whole point of it is to get your body back to a regulated state. And what I didn't understand, and what no one ever taught me, was that when we feel scared, our bodies feel it too, because our body and mind are one. And unless you understand how to get your body to a place of safety, to a parasympathetic state, a place of rest and digest, you're going to stay stuck in those same cycles of dysfunction. I didn't realize my attachment wound was driving every single unconscious decision. It was ruining my career. It was ruining my relationship with self, with others, with a higher power, with everywhere, because I kept proving more. I had to keep working harder and harder for love. Nothing I ever did was good enough. And it got me in these really dangerous cycles of dysfunction across every facet of my life. And it wasn't until I was able to find nervous system literacy that I was able to my life IRL. So me IRL is also an homage to both my parents, because they spent their lives trying to help others heal. They were both therapists and activists and old hippies and social workers. And they never found any healing themselves because they didn't understand nervous system literacy. My dad was so close, though. He was like just right there. And the thing is he probably would have got there if he hadn't met that woman in the psych facility, who I told him from the beginning, I didn't like her. I didn't think she was a good influence on him. And as it turns out, she wasn't. And the thing is like when you have to read the room to find safety, you're really good at really seeing through people and really being able to identify, is this person safe? Is this person not? And oftentimes people don't agree with you. It doesn't make you a lot of friends when you're saying, hey, this isn't like a good idea, Dad. Like, I don't think this is going to go well. And that's kind of what happened. So I had been telling him, I met her like in April of 2005 when I was home on spring break, because I couldn't afford to go away on spring break. And I immediately was like, this is not a good person for you to be around. And the thing is, he was living in like a group home with 3 other grown men. It was so hard for me to like even go visit him, but I was the only person in the family that maintained the same relationship with him that I had while he was living with us. And he didn't want to be there. And it was really hard for our family. It's hard to be a child that has to take care of themselves, but also take care of a parent. And this is something I've dealt with my whole life, which again, I never considered that this was a problem, right? Like this was just what I was born into. And I didn't even consider I was suffering. I didn't consider I was in pain. I didn't even consider I was cursed for a long time, because this was just my life. And it was my life of my immediate family too. Like these are all things that we all grow up with. And it doesn't mean that our families are bad. It doesn't mean that they're horrible people. It just means that they don't know how to regulate their nervous system, and they don't know how to their lives. And when we don't know how to do that, we bring everybody down with us. In April 2005, I met this woman in my dad's apartment. She said like 3 crazy things to me at once. So we'll talk about it at a different date. And I was like, she's not a good influence on you. And I was like, I don't think you should date her. And he didn't like that. And it was like one of the first times that I really like put my foot down with him. And I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. And just like that role reversal of having to be the parent when you're a child isn't good for you, right? And it just sets you up for all different types of dysfunction later in life. But again, I didn't know that, right? So that was April, and I graduated in May. And in the weeks leading up to my graduation, things weren't going well. We had a major fight about, I think it was Easter, because he always like tried to avoid all the holidays in our family, which we were Jewish. My family, my mom's mom escaped the Holocaust, my maternal grandmother, and came here, and within 5 years got married, was beaten by her husband, and then eventually got divorced when my mom was like around 2, and beat the out of my mom. So when you think about epigenetic trauma, right? Trauma that lives in our genes and becomes pronounced through environmental factors, this is how this kind of happens, right? And I'm not like, my story is absolutely crazy, and I'll say this over and over, but there's something in there for everybody. So when he and I had that problem, and he like had such a problem with organized religion, I get it. I'm very spiritual. I believe in God. Do I love organized religion? No. I understand all the things. He was always exploring everything. He actually died a Jew for Jesus, which, he was a Taoist, and he believed in Buddhism, and he always quoted Confucius, and he was a brilliant, wise man. He taught me so much. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this today. But when you have 2 conversations that are your last in-person conversations with both your parents that are volatile and include the things aren't going to go well in your life. Things are going well.com is how it is. And if you go to that website, it'll get directed to meirl.com, because I've owned that domain for many years. And so by the time my graduation was late in May, the University of Delaware like has like a winter session that's like 7 weeks or something. So we graduated way after everybody else. But in the weeks leading up to it, I was like, listen, if you cannot handle being at my graduation, don't come, because every single one of my life cycle events to date, my bat mitzvah, my graduations, like every single thing had been marred by someone being unwell in my family. And I just didn't want this to be another one of them. Like my high school graduation wasn't good. And then eventually you'll hear the story. My wedding got ruined also by unwell people. But as it turns out, from the people that I married into. And it took me many years to really understand how unwell they are. But evil exists, and sometimes you marry into them, and that's real. But we'll go into that in a little bit. So in those weeks, so he was isolated like I am right now. But he had a job. He was working for Trenton State Prison. He had lost his job a few years before after working in a hospital for like over 25 years. He was really tired and he took a nap in the ER, and like you can't do that. And like we probably did have like a wrongful termination suit, but for whatever reason, my mom couldn't deal with that. Also, we didn't have money. Like that was a major part. And like I didn't get any student assistance. I never talked about my dad's suicide attempts. Like that wasn't a storyline. We weren't allowed to talk about it. So when you think about shame, you're not allowed to speak your truth. It all lives in your body, and it becomes pronounced through different things, whether it's illness, whether it's physical illness, right? Psychological illness, because it's really the same thing. Cancers, autoimmune diseases, ADD, OCD, weight issues, hormone issues, every single thing impacts your body's ability to function. And when our mind and body are not one, we end up really, really destroying our lives, which is what I did inadvertently. So for weeks, I was like, hey, don't come to the graduation if you can't be there, like if you can't handle it. And he assured me he would be fine. So the morning of my graduation, I got like a message from him at like, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning. Now we lived like an hour and a half away. So there was no reason for him to be leaving at that time. And he was like, hey, I'm on my way. And I was like, things are not going to go well today. Like, I just always know when things are not going to go well. It's a sixth sense. It's literally a survival mechanism, right? When you're always trying to protect yourself and you're always trying to stay safe, you look at every single thing. You're able, like, I can literally look at someone's micro expression and know whether or not they're safe or not. And sometimes it's something that they don't even know that they're doing. And like that's happened to me before. And I've had to reframe those things. And I've been able to go back into those environments and like know that, hey, this was, this person still isn't for me, but I could still go in those environments. But then sometimes you're like, hey, I can't be a part of this. So May 28th, 2005, he came to my graduation, came to the first part. There was like a major university ceremony, and then there was like a college ceremony. And in between, we were going to have lunch, and he was going to help me move out of my off-campus house, because I also never had anybody to help me move in and out. Like my mom was only 5'1", like 100 pounds, literally like soaking wet. She was 101 pounds when she got pregnant with me, and she was a tiny woman. My sibling, my sister, was only 5 foot. She was also a tiny person, and she also had the other extreme of my eating disorder, which isn't a disorder. It's literally a somatic response to what is happening in your life. When you can't be in your body, you don't know if you're hungry or full. You try to control everything you can. I used to think I was cursed, and I worked out harder and more and longer. That's how I scaled to 14 hours a week, not because I started there. I was an athlete growing up. I ran track. I swam. My parents were both athletes. Like, well, my dad was, at least. My mom wasn't, but she stayed active. She was fit. She was cute. She was an adorable woman in the 70s, and she was very angry that I was fat growing up. She was so angry at me. Like, she's like, I don't understand why you're fat. She's like, I made my own baby food. I worked full time. You never had a bottle. I nursed you till you were 3 years old. I was like, lady, this is your problem, not mine. But the thing is that when our parents project their own attachment wounds, their own failures, their own inability to meet us where we are, then we internalize it. And when we're able to reframe those things as other people's failures, as other people's owning their own things, and it's not on us, we can lift those burdens off of our shoulders. Like, she told me that she always said that, I can't read my handwriting. I really can't. Like, I literally scribbled something on this bag the other day, and I was like, I don't even know what that says. Like, and I was able to decipher it out, but like, that's a problem. But the thing is, it never affected my schoolwork. Most people have an IEP. Most people don't fly under the radar. My mom was on a child study team, and she still didn't know that, like, I should have. I mean, it didn't affect my schoolwork, but it could have, right? And she just always accused me of being like the kids in her school who fidgeted, right? And that's the thing. When you fidget, it's your body doesn't feel safe. So I know when I don't have to fidget, when I don't have to use a fidget toy, which thank God became cool when I was an adult, when my friends' kids started to use them, I was like, great, I need these so badly. It's also another reason why I love the Komuso brand, because they have these Komuso breathers and they're flexible. You could fidget with them. Like I literally love them. I don't even need it today because I feel safe telling this story. And the thing is that attachment wounds are things that unconsciously drive every single decision. They're the motivating factor of every single decision we make. Last week's episode, I talked about attachment wounds as they pertain to sex and love issues, right? And addictions. This week, I'm going to talk about it as it pertains to work, life, family, romantic relationships, because it's very real and it's something we all struggle with. So May 28th, 2005, my dad left in the middle of my college graduation. He said, I haven't been part of this family for 4 years, and he left. And in that moment, I remember thinking in my head, I was in my blue cap and gown, standing in front of my 1980, what was it? Oh no, 1996 Honda Accord that I had just bought the February of 2003 after he had a suicide attempt in my 1987 Camry that the heat and the air didn't work. But at least it was a car. It got me where I needed to go. My mom was so unhelpful. And that's why I really didn't appreciate her. Like I never felt like I had support. Like I had people working against me. And this is really important to remember because my mom was always working against me, like most people, when they have to tell their child that their father tried to himself. Don't blame the child. Well, she blamed me for having too many feelings and said, like, I don't like telling you these things because you always get too emotional. And I was like, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to respond? Also, just by the way, he did it in my car. That was his car originally. And that meant I couldn't use it anymore. And that posed another problem to me. And she made my life so much harder. Like try taking a yellow cab to your serving job in 2003 in the suburbs in New Jersey. It was almost impossible, but I did it because I always got myself out of situations. And this is the only situation I haven't been able to get myself out by myself because I'm supposed to share this story broadly. This is why my soul was born. This is my purpose. And I had a conversation this past week on May 28th of 2026 with Tim Fullerton, who really reminded me of activism. I grew up in an activist family. Both my parents were activists. I have something hanging here that says, you have not converted a man because you have silenced him. And that used to be something that our family grew up on. My dad used to always tell me to write my congressman when I was like a toddler and I complained about, I don't want to go to bed or I want to watch TV. Be like, write your congressman. He was always writing. He was brilliant. He was as brilliant as he was unwell, which his unwellness really wasn't being unwell. Like mental illness isn't what you think it is. It's actually nervous system dysregulation. And when we're able to reframe that, we can actually address it at a much more holistic level, but also much more comprehensive in ways that we've never imagined as a society without pharma. You could still use medicine. I believe people should take medicine if they need it. I haven't ever had to. I've never even taken a Xanax in my life, and I've been through a lot of things. I still smoke pot medicinally. It's legal in most states in the US. And I did stop drinking and I realized my issue was sex and love. And when you grow up in an activist household, you have that in your blood. And I forgot it for a long time because I've been just trying to survive. And I always say, I like to use my youthfulness like my white privilege to help other people. And that's the truth. And that's, the activists in my blood, because that's real. Like when you think about people that take advantage and manipulate others, they don't have that in them. They don't care about helping other people. They want to hurt other people just to get ahead, right? That's where the narcissism, the avoidance, all of those things that are really just unacceptable and just more than unacceptable, but illegal at times and dangerous. It's dangerous to people's health and lives. It's really just a terrible thing. And I realized I wasn't cursed. I was just in lifelong survival mode. And when I was able to stop and breathe and find calmness and clarity and stillness and be able to connect with myself, right? And others and a higher power, everything changed. And that's what we're going to teach each other how to do. I had this conversation with Tim last week and it reminded me of my reason, of my why. And I knew my parents were shining down, so proud of me, because this is something that we need to talk about as a society. We need to talk about real ways people can get help. And Tim is doing it through a political lens. And everyone who knows me knows that I am very political. I've had to keep my mouth shut over the last few years when I've been very polarizing in the previous elections. And I was trying to scale a brand. And I was working with a bunch of veteran communities. And the thing is that when we are silenced, we feel shame and our bodies absorb the shame and absorb the illness. But when we're able to speak our truth, the whole world opens up. And I always say, I'm never going to die alone in silence and shame like my father. The truth shall set you free. And that's why my nails are blue. That's why most of my things are blue. I'm not wearing blue today, but it's for the throat chakra, for speaking your truth, not living in shame. Because that's the reality, is when we're silenced, it doesn't matter if we're protecting people in our family or other families, or we think that we have an obligation. It doesn't help us. It actually hurts us more. And that's kind of what I've been through. So May 28th, my dad left in the middle of the 2 graduations. I never saw him again. The woman, by the way, ended up destroying his life because he let her. And we'll read one of his notes in the future, because it's an attachment wound. And I knew it was going to happen. I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, this is not a good influence for you. And he didn't like that. He didn't like that I pushed back on him. So he was very angry at me, and he left in the middle of the graduation. And I never realized how much it impacted me. But I ended up meeting my now ex-husband about 7 months later, in January of 2005. No, January of 2006, and January 2nd specifically. And I thought, like, my ex-husband's name starts with a J, and my mom and my sister at the time was always like, WWJD, like they were making fun of me. What would he do? And I thought his family was wonderful. They seemed really kind and supportive, and they paid for everything for him, and they were so generous. But as it turns out, they were just love bombing, and they have major attachment wounds. And in trying to on my life, I found out how big their attachment wounds are, to the point where they stole from their son and me, and then tried to legally attack me after attacking me for many years on a public forum, both public and privately. And that's an attachment wound, when you keep trying to prove yourself over and over and over at the expense of other people. That's why we hear narcissism a lot. That's why we hear all these words that are thrown around: avoidance. It's all about attachment wounds. It's all about not feeling safe enough to speak your truth. And when we live in shame and we live in avoidance, people's lives gets destroyed. And when I was talking with Tim last week, he was like, yeah, white collar crime, I think, is even worse than traditional crime. And I said, I agree, because it's not having someone in the middle of the street dead, right? It's behind closed doors. It's quiet, follow the money, right? As they say. And so I got myself into a position where I was inadvertently not doing well in my interviews. So it took me about 6 months to get a job, when everyone's like, I don't understand. You're so brilliant. Look at the mouth on you. That's what everyone's always said to me. Like, with the mouth on you, you'll have a job, no problem. And that didn't start my career off well. I always knew I wanted to go into advertising, but I didn't start in advertising. I started in technology. And around that same time, like right as I got this job that I knew I didn't want from the beginning, I remember when the guy called me and he told me about the job, I was like, that's not for me. That's behind the scenes. That's not a direct sales role. But I took it anyway because I was desperate. And when we make decisions out of desperation, things don't go well for us. And so the job was fine. They loved me there. When I left on my own to get a job in the city that was more towards advertising, they offered me another role in recruiting. And I didn't want to be at the mercy of job growth, which I didn't know how crazy it was going to get. And around that same time, I met my now ex-husband, and I thought his family was amazing. But as it turns out, they were stealing from us, and they have no moral compass. They don't care. And the thing is I let them. I was the fat girl with no family, right? They love bombed me. They acted like they cared. His mom literally manipulated us so badly. They took advantage of my trust, and they really caused a lot of problems. They exploited my trust. They made us not trust other people. Like, his mom would always call us after every appointment with the accountant and say, oh, I hope he didn't, he wasn't too loose and fast, or whatever she would say. And she would plant seeds of doubt in the accountant, not with them. And the thing is that they were always covering up their own failures. And my ex-husband never had the ability to communicate with his parents. This has impacted me since 2007. It impacted my job. It impacted my health. It impacted my ability to get to and from work. It impacted my ability to do job. We never got to have kids. We never moved forward. His parents would literally, he worked 6 days a week for the last 20 years in New York City, and he didn't even know how much money he was making. So when you think about attachment wounds and avoidance, this is what happens when people avoid the hard conversations. Avoidance doesn't solve the problem. Like, his dad tried to block me when I was like, hey, like, we really need help. Like, what's going on? Because I was the one who was providing for us. I was the one who provided insurance. When we got home from our honeymoon in September of 2011, and I lost my job for the very first time with my whole team. The whole company closed. The whole time before we got married, they were like, as soon as you get married, you have to put him on the insurance. As soon as you get married, you have to put him on the insurance. And I didn't know that in my body, insurance was love. And I was like, of course I would. Insurance is a big deal. I minored in economics. Like I saw insurance as love, which I only realized later through therapy. I had this epiphany, in the beginning stages of therapy with my EMDR therapist. And eye movement desensitization reprocessing is the acronym. I don't use eye movement. I use tappers, which are bilateral stimulation. Again, some callbacks from the previous episode if you watched it. If not, you could also find some of these definitions on meirl.com. Under learn, there's a dysfunction junction dictionary, because learning is power, knowledge is power. And the more you know, the more you could grow, and the more you could get yourself out of these toxic situations that are killing our minds, bodies, and soul. And I never understood why I was so unhappy when I had such a nice man. Everyone's like, oh, he's so nice. He's such a nice guy. And I'm like, but this doesn't work for me. And I never got out of it because I didn't feel safe enough to. I knew I couldn't go home to be with my mom because she was absolutely insane. And I was afraid that I wasn't going to be good enough on my own. I thought it was safer to be with someone that I wasn't the happiest with, but I felt like I could be with, right? In my 20s, that by the time I got to my 30s and 40s, I was like, this doesn't work. And it got really dangerous. And it was because I thought of myself as the little fat girl who didn't have any parents, who had no support. Meanwhile, I was the one supporting us. I was the one providing insurance. And when they didn't give me insurance, when I got home from my honeymoon in September of 2011, I internalized it. I was like, I remember the first thoughts going through my head. And these are always disassociations. Like the disassociation, in my college graduation, in my cap and gown, I used to think was going to, in that moment, I was like, this is going to be the first scene of my movie. Now, I wasn't trying to make a movie back then, but I am now. And it's also probably still not going to be the first scene of my movie. But at the time, that was my big story for a long time, was my dad left in the middle of my college graduation. I never saw him again. And, when you think about parents, when you don't have parents, we were meant to live in tribes. We were not meant to go it alone. And when you don't have parents to protect you, there is evil in this world, and lots of people take advantage of it. And my ex-husband's family took major advantage of it. They took advantage of their own son. They still did. They still do to this very day. There's no solve. And they've come after me legally. They threaten me all the time. He threatens me, and I'm sick of it. So I am sharing this story because we die alone in silence and shame, but together we rise. And it's really true. It's the only way we could overcome anything is by speaking our truth. So within 6 months, I met him, 7 months, whatever. And I thought they were amazing. They seemed like great parents. And all their friends and family seemed great too. But little did I know they were just keeping up with the criminals. And they all were in a who's is bigger contest. Who's Richard is bigger contest, like the Don't Be a Richard hats that I will be updating on Merch with a Perp. They're not updated yet. And we were the only people that paid for the consequences. They have extraneous properties that they should not have ever been qualified for. And meanwhile, I haven't had a job for 3 years. I lost my insurance to the state of New Jersey. I was the one protecting us. I was the one providing. And these people are like, we have no obligations towards you, not even towards their son. And that's what an attachment wound is, because their son still goes in there every single day and works for them and allows them to steal from him, and allows his dad made him deplete his 401k and take everything out before he was 42 years old. And then he had penalties from the IRS, and then he had to take out a loan for that. These are real things that happen in dysfunctional families. And, I thought they were the perfect family, the white picket fence, the 3 kids, the 2 parents, grandparents, all the things I never had, all the support I never had. But as it turns out, there is real evil in this world, and attachment wounds. When we don't have the ability to find safety in our bodies, we let other people control our lives. And this is exactly what happened. Like, I knew I had to get out for a really long time, and I kept losing my job with my whole team and then being blamed for it. And that's another thing, is like, I was used to people working against me. So when you think about attachment wounds, my mom was always working against me. She never helped me, which is why I hated her, honestly. Like, when she died, the first thought in my head was, I can't believe I'm not going to get laid tonight. Like, and that's also a part of an addiction. But I had a date that night. My ex-husband and I were separated. And it took many years for us to actually get divorced, but like literally not until 2025. And this was in 2019. But like, she was never a parent to me. So when you grow up like no parents, J. Cole style, people take advantage of you. And as it turns out, I did need parents. And it was the biggest problem in my life, was that my dad left in the middle of my college graduation. Then my mom died. Those are major problems because these people took advantage of it. They literally saw every entry possible and they exacerbated it. They manipulated it. And they exploited our trust. Like, why would you think that your ex-husband's family would be stealing from you? They knew all the things that happened. Like, at my mom's Shiva, I learned that my now ex-mother-in-law knew what happened with my mom and her mom in the will, and how she got screwed. I didn't know she knew that. They still exploited us over and over and over again. And it wasn't just about money. It was about the mutual respect. And we never got to have kids. His dad wouldn't even ask him before they went on trips around the world for 2 weeks at a time, expecting us to just stay with the business when it's my birthday. Like, these people have no respect because they don't have respect for themselves. And I used to internalize that. I thought it was my fault. Oh, like the thought that went through my head when I got home from my honeymoon and I needed insurance and they wouldn't give it to me was, oh my God, my dad wasn't at my wedding. And, I, this, and this, and I have nobody. And it was really scary. And like, that's when I gained a lot of weight because I was protecting myself and I didn't understand why. And the thing is like, when you can't find protection in yourself, you outsource it to other people and other things. And it gets you into a lot of trouble, whether it's health conditions, whether it's situations that are financial like this, whether it's the wrong relationships, the wrong environments. Like, these people are not good people. I don't care anymore because this is not a good situation. And you shouldn't be allowed to weaponize the legal system after you're already exploiting the legal system in your favor. And when I started this, I wasn't trying to be a founder. I just wanted to stabilize my life. And that's all I've ever really been trying to do. So we're going to keep this episode short and sweet. But the ways that I've been able to stabilize my life has been through nervous system regulation. I've been able to find hope in really, really hopeless moments and a reason to live further when I feel absolutely alone and being attacked and not supported. And it's really hard. And when people take advantage and exploit your vulnerabilities, it makes you question your reality. It makes you question your sanity. It makes you question, everything. Like, oh my gosh, like, why would people do this? And the reality is it's their own attachment wound showing. Hi, I see your attachment wound. And, it's not acceptable. So we're going to talk about those things on this podcast and we're going to share how you get through them because it's really, really hard to human. And we all need a way to move forward, how to our lives IRL. I always say, how the F did I get here and how the do I get out? I didn't realize my attachment wound was driving every single unconscious decision. It was ruining my career. It was ruining my relationship with self, with others, with a higher power, with everywhere, because I kept proving more. I had to keep working harder and harder for love. Nothing I ever did was good enough. And it got me in these really dangerous cycles of dysfunction across every facet of my life. And it wasn't until I was able to find nervous system literacy that I was able to my life IRL. And we're going to do this together. So if you have any questions or if you want to book a consult, all the links are above. And just remember, you're not alone. We all go through very similar things and we're all silenced and shamed and not allowed to speak about it and feel like we're alone, but we're not. We're really not. This is the human experience and we're going to help each other get through it one day at a time because together we rise. The art and science of connection is real and this is how we our lives IRL and biohack and embodied comeback. Don't be a Richard and join us for the next episode. I hope you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching the On Me IRL pod with your host, Lauren Friedman, not another healing asshole. If you want to support the mission and the project and this channel, the quickest way to do that is to hit the subscribe button. Also, if you're so inclined, please like, share, and comment any thoughts in the comments below. I will personally be responding to them. And if any of the products that I showcase or wear or speak about are interesting to you, please don't forget to shop them in the links above, including but not limited to merch with a perp, as well as all of my affiliate products, including Komuso Design, Recess, Routine, Built, as well as Equip, and more. Always adding more each day to better ourselves because together we rise from me to me IRL. I just want to share some of the brand partners that really help save my sanity, help my nervous system, and just keep me sane and from losing my mind each day. So first is Komuso. Komuso is a breathing tool that helps you regulate your nervous system in real time. And before we dive in, I'd like to do a little breathwork exercise together. So I like to do a 4-4-8 breath. And what you do is you inhale for 4, you hold for 4, and then you exhale slowly for 8. And that is where the magic happens. And that is where your heart rate gets reduced, your blood pressure gets reduced, your sanity comes back, your will to live, and your body literally can get regulated from a state of dysregulation to a state of regulation in real time. So let's do it together. literally magic. Like you could feel the difference. You can literally feel the shift. That's why it's called the Komuso shift. The next thing is Quit protein bars with 20 grams of grass-fed protein, as well as Built protein bars with 17 to 20 grams of protein as well. That has whey protein in it. Both of those things help you stay regulated. They keep you fuller. They help build amino acids, which keeps your brain from having brain fog. It helps you think clearer, and it just helps you stay saner. The next thing that I'm absolutely obsessed with is morning routine. Morning routine is an electrolyte that is only 3 ingredients. It's literally apple cider vinegar, organic lemon, and sea salt. It's so delicious. And it's literally my favorite way to hydrate. I'm a wateraholic. I carry around a 64-ounce water bottle just for fun. I've been drinking water my whole life, and I stopped drinking a few years ago, which is why I love Recess as well for the sobriety spectrum drinks. But literally all of these things keep us regulated, they keep us hydrated, they keep us sane, they keep us full, and they just keep us from losing our minds. So that's what I'm doing. You can find all the links to buy those products in the links above.